Hello, I'm Rick Hertless, founder of His Gospel Power. Thank you for joining with our program this week as we look into the book of 1 Timothy. This week we're in the 6th chapter, beginning the 6th chapter. We will see how far we get by the end of the week. More than likely we'll not get to the end, but we are taking this line by line and verse by verse, as well as really placing it within the practical aspects of the Bible. How are we to look at these last days? How are we to walk in these last days? What are we to understand about things that are going on in the world? And that's what we do here at His Gospel Power. So thank you for joining with our program. Please, if you do not support our program, please go to hisgospelpower.org, click on the Contact Us button, and from there you can do donate, or you can just do your prayer requests or prayer support. So we would appreciate any support that you give us. Your prayers are wonderful. So thank you so much for those who do support us. This is a worldwide ministry. We're in over 50 countries. We're in just 50 plus because I don't even know how many countries. My analytics only goes to 50 countries, but we are in over 50 countries around the world that listen to this program. And like I said, this is more of a study than it is anything, but it's a study in how we are to live for Jesus in these last days. We get into politics here. We get into just regular everyday living, and we talk about sin. So if you're squeamish about sin, then you need to go ahead and turn it off and go on back to your normal whatever it was you were doing, happily living in sin. But you will not be happy living in sin once Jesus returns. So it is important that you listen to the Word of God and apply it to your life. This is not the time to say that, it's okay to do this little sin or that little sin, or I'll take care of it tomorrow, or anything of the sort. Number one, it should never have been okay. It should have never been the way that you live your life. God wants us to live a holy life. He wants us to live for Him. He wants us to be a good example for Him. And so, but all the more as you see the day approaching. Hebrews 10:25 says, "Do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together, and all the more as you see the day approaching." What day? Well, the second coming of Jesus Christ, of course. And we are seeing the second coming of Jesus Christ, I'm going to say, coming like a freight train. It is everything. It was for a long time, many years. You would hear about maybe one of the signs, or the signs of the end of His coming. You would see once a year, once every couple of years, maybe, or something. It was, and then we started seeing it more often, maybe once every 6 months. Well, now I'm seeing signs of the end of the age 3 or 4 times a day. It is moving so fast, I can't keep up with all of it. There are locust plagues out there right now that my mother was asking me about just this morning. That, have I heard anything about the locust? Because you're not hearing anything in the news. You're not hearing anything in the news that matters for your salvation, for your preparation, for anything. And so she was asking me, "Have you heard anything about the locust?" And so I started looking it up, and I told her, I said, Mom, to tell you the truth, I haven't been able to get back on that because there's so many other things going on with the earthquakes, with the weather the way it is, just all kinds of things that are happening on this earth daily, and then of course just your normal everyday worries and troubles that you go through, concerns, all of those things together. It is very difficult to try to keep up with everything that is going on. So I looked it up a little bit on the internet, and really it didn't have much. The locust plague that has hit Africa, there's one in South America, Argentina and Paraguay. I've heard that it's heading north. I do not know if it would get this far north or not. I can't answer those questions. I can say it is imperative that you get right with Christ. It's imperative that you understand these are the last days. It's imperative that you know that you should be living every moment for Jesus in the way that He would have you to live. So let's go ahead and get started with 1 Timothy 6, verse 1. "Let as many servants as are under the yoke count their own masters worthy of all honor, that the name of God and His doctrine be not blasphemed. Now, I'm going to stop there for a second. We're probably going to take all day, the rest of the day, on this. Because it does not say, servants, you should strike, servants, you should not, that you should get out. It doesn't say any of that. It says, let as many servants as are under the yoke count their own masters worthy of all honor. So in other words, if you are whatever position God has placed you in, you are to do that for the glory of God. Now that's not to say that you should not seek to get out of, if you're a servant, it doesn't mean that you should not seek to get out of that servitude. It does, however, lend credence to the fact that you shouldn't pick up a gun and shoot your master to get out of the servitude. It says that you should honor him. Now, we're going to get into later, God may allow you to be released, and we'll get into that. When we may get into it today, we'll see how what Ron's got for us. But until then, I want you to understand, God has never actually condemned slavery. Now, what he has condemned is bad slave owners and bad slaves. Okay? Because back in those days especially, there were slaves that were taken forcefully, but there were also slaves that were slaves by choice. They couldn't earn a living any other way. And I will take a step out. Some you're probably not going to like this, but I'm going to go ahead and take a step out. Most Americans, in fact, most citizens of the world are slaves. You're slave to something. If you have chosen to take a minimum wage job, or any job for that matter, one that you're stuck in, that you can't get out of, that you hate, you don't want to do that job, but you're doing it just so you can earn a living, or just so you can make ends meet, or whatever, you're basically a slave to that. And okay, I know it's a different kind of a slavery, and you could choose with that kind of slavery just to go in and say, you know what, I quit. But then in doing so, you would choose also to lose everything you've got. And so basically, these servants had the same option. They could have gone in one day and said, you know what, I quit. Now, granted, most of them, that would have meant their life. That when they're giving up everything, that includes everything. But put yourself in that position. If you gave up everything you've got and you lost everything, it might actually mean your life as well. So I think this verse that we're looking at, and this is not the only verse, there are others that tell us that basically if you're a slave, you do it to the best of your ability. If you're a servant, you do it to the best of your ability. If you're a master, then you should do that to the best of your ability as well. And we're not going to probably get into masters today. We might. Ron.
Well, that takes this one verse takes me back to a passage of Scripture, and really in my translation it says yoke as bondservants, and we know, and we've talked about on this program before, that bondservants are those that have chosen to be bonded as servants to their master. So they have chosen to that lifestyle of servitude. Well, look at that today. I mean, we can take it in modern terms. When you take a job, I don't know a single job, at least here in America, where you don't know what your pay is, what your job criteria is, what's expected of you when you accept that job. You can deny that job based off what you're told. Now, when you get into that job, if things change and extra jobs are expected of you, things like that, that's different. But what really gets my goat is when people take a job, knowing the pay, knowing the job, are only expected to do what was expected of them in that job interview, and then they want to complain about it. They want to complain about their pay, they want to complain about the work, they want to complain about the hours, but when they knew that ahead of time, and then they want to complain about it afterwards, that's just, to me, that's...
I know, and in some cases, maybe you're thinking, well, I had to do that. Well, if you had to do that,
you still knew it.
You still knew it.
Yes.
I mean, it was still, this is my obligation. I still had to do it, but you still knew what you were doing. And I agree with you. It's like, God says that we should give him glory in all things. I mean, all right, Ephesians 6:5. It says pretty much the same thing. And it says, bondservants, servants, okay? Be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh. So he's not talking about servants to Christ in this phrase. He's talking about if you're an actual servant in the flesh, with fear and trembling and sincerity of heart, as to Christ. All right, so that's one phrase. So he's saying you approach being that servant as you would to Christ, okay? Not with eye service as men pleasers, but bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. Now, in the context of what Ron was talking about, this is exactly, look at this, not with eye service as men pleasers. So you say, I'm going to take this $8 an hour job, and I'm just going to hide in the corner, I'm going to hide in the back, I'm going to do nothing, I'm just going to collect the $8. Well, is that doing it as you would to Christ? No, absolutely not. If you've taken an $8 an hour job, you do $15 an hour work. And I'm going to say, my mom, a long, long time ago, she took a job with the state. It's the day she took the job, the lady who helped her get the job told her, well, you might as well not do anything extra here. Just come to work, do your job, and then go home. They're never going to give you a raise. They're never going to promote you or anything. She had been there for several years, this lady. And Mom, instead of listening to that lady, she just came in and did what Mom did, which was work.
Yeah, and with that mentality that her supervisor gave her, that's why she never advanced.
Well, exactly. Well, it wasn't her supervisor. It was just a friend that got her to help her get the job. She was not a supervisor.
Okay,
she was just a lowly nothing.
Yeah.
She was like still after all those years, she was still at the baseline. Well, Mom 3 months later got a raise.
Well, yeah,
and 3 months after that, she got a raise and a promotion, and then she was out of that. She was out of that department where her friend got her in. That friend, so-called friend, never spoke to her again. She was mad at her because she did good work and got promoted. And so, but Mom just did what Mom did, which was work.
Yeah,
she took the job because she had. But then, by the time it was all said and done, she was like top third in the state in the Treasury Department. And so it's like...
It's amazing how that concept works.
Exactly.
You don't want to work, you don't get promoted. You want to work. Now, yeah, there are always those jobs that, the supervisors don't care. But as a general rule, you get what you pay for.
Right.
And
and we hear a lot about slaves these days. I mean, everything is about slavery. And of course, the truth of the matter is nothing is about slavery. The only thing about slavery it is today is to make you a slave of the elite. That's what's going on. Okay? Make no mistake. It has nothing to do with the fact that there were black slaves. Nothing. You can argue, you can be screaming at the screen right now or screaming at wherever you're watching this or listening this to right now, but you can mark this down. It has absolutely nothing to do with those who were slaves. It has nothing to do with the blacks that are supposedly held down. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with making all of the common man slaves to the elite. That is what it has to do. And ultimately, it has to do with the fact that Antichrist is going to come in and he's going to take over. That's what this all has to do. It's a spiritual issue more than anything. It is preparing you for eternity. How are you reacting to eternity right now?
I think there's and I was looking this up while you were reading, verse 1, it speaks specifically to those that still know it. I can't say I've heard it in the longest time, but I knew it as a child, the Beatitudes. And it's really that second half of the verse, so that the name of God and the teaching may not be reviled. Well, what is the teaching of God? Well, in Jesus' own words, in Matthew 5, he gave us the Sermon on the Mount with the Beatitudes. And I just want to read them. So when you think about giving honor to your employer, to your boss, to, say your master, if you fall into that regards, starts in verse 2. And he, Jesus, opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile and persecute you, and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Could you imagine reading that every day before you go into work and make that your daily agenda when you're at work? I had to do it at my previous jobs. I mean, I would go into work knowing that I was working with those that were living in debauchery and wanted to attack me for my beliefs. And some of them told me flat out. I mean, it wasn't that I would walk into work. I mean, if you live by these and you don't walk into work looking for someone to attack, but go in there with that mindset, then let the Lord work on them. Don't you try to change their minds.
And the biggest thing is, if you'll just go in there into whatever you're doing as to the Lord, like you said, prayerfully allowing God to handle all situations instead of you. You pray about things. The funny thing about praying about, let's say, somebody is treating you bad, or at least the way you perceive they're treating you bad. The funny thing about that is, as you pray and things start getting better, you look back on the situation and you find out, you know what? I don't think it was them that changed. It was me. It was maybe more grace given to your heart. Now, it could be them that changes as well. But the grace that maybe you have extended now because of the prayer that you have put into that situation has made it change. And so you see a difference. Well, that's all the time that we have. Thanks for joining with our program. Please go to hisgospelpower.org, click on the donate button or the contact us button. Until next time, I pray you receive His gospel power today.
He died for you. He died for me. From our sin, He set us free. He loved us so, His life He gave. So if we ask, we can be saved. He's calling you, He's calling you. Jesus Christ is calling you. If He's touched your heart and soul, then come let Jesus make you whole. Come kneel with me and we will pray that all your sin be washed away.